Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel Medical Research with Mohan. I am Dr. Mohan Raj Sharma and today's topic for discussion is concept of conceptual framework. In this video, I will first describe the meaning of conceptual framework. Then we will briefly discuss the difference between theoretical and conceptual framework. Third, I will take you through the steps of framing a conceptual framework. And finally, we'll have some real-world examples. Let's first define what a conceptual framework is. It is nothing but a visual representation of what you expect to derive from your research work. It describes various variables and their possible connections and interplay in your study. This conceptual framework is based on your understanding of the relationship between different variables based on the previous literature review. And the overall objective is to describe the researcher's understanding of the main concepts under investigation. Let's briefly discuss about the theoretical framework. Here we have a picture of a landslide between Muli and Naranghat Highway. This picture was taken from Kathmandu Post, and we have different experts looking at this picture. While a person from the public health will have a different perspective, whereas a geologist will look this from a different angle as to how to prevent landslides in the future. Whereas a trauma surgeon will think about the potential types of injuries and how to develop a good trauma system in the context of Nepal. Different theoretical frameworks are there for different scientists. A particular perspective or lens is chosen for the interpretation of the phenomenon based on the background of the scientist. Then they bring specialized knowledge, experience, and value from their area of expertise to this phenomenon. And then this influence the interpretation of the phenomenon. This is how the theoretical framework works. These theoretical frameworks influence how they design and carry out their studies and interpret their data. Theoretical framework, you state the assumptions and orientation by the researchers regarding the topic of the study, and theoretical frameworks can take on different orientation based on the background of the scientist. Whereas in conceptual framework, you describe the understanding of the main concepts under investigation based on one orientation. Now let's go to the process of developing conceptual framework. First, you develop research questions, then you select variables. Third, you visualize your cause and effect relationship based on review of the literature. Fourth, you identify confounders. And fifth, you identify the effect modifier. Then your conceptual framework will be ready. Let's go one by one. First, we start with the developing research question. This is the most important step, and I have made a separate video on how to frame research question. And the examples would be like this. Does drinking under the influence increase your risk of road traffic accident, or does drinking coffee increase your memory? Could be a baseline question for you to start the conceptual framework. Next step will be to select the variables, and always you need to have one dependent and at least one independent variables to make a conceptual framework. In our previous example, driving under the influence is the independent variable and increased risk of road traffic accident is the dependent variable. The next step is visualizing your cause and effect relationship based on the review of the literature. Same example, driving under the influence, increased risk of RTA. Then driving under the, what are the factors that may come into play? For example, what is the prevalence, what is the most common affected age group that is involved in driving under the influence. That will be the factor you will consider in your literature review. Whereas what exactly causes an increased incidence of RTA in patients who drive under the influence? What are the mechanisms? Is it due to decreased visibility or overconfidence or poor judgment? That all this information you gather by your literature review. The fourth step is to identify control variables, also known as confounders. The confounders are nothing but the factors that can influence the relationship between your independent and dependent variables. Please note that to a factor to be a confounder, it has to influence both variables. I will give this example again. Driving under the influence leads to an increased risk of RTA. Then there could be many confound. The age can have influence on both driving under the influence or the increased risk. Comorbidities can lead to an increased chance of having an accident. For example, weakness of the limbs, tremor, those kind of things can also have influence. Now, the last step is to identify the effect modifier. Effect modifiers are the factors that can influence the dependent variable, but not the independent variable. Note the difference with the confounders. So same example we have reached up to there. Now we have an effect modifier added to the dependent variable. Those could be the road conditions or condition of the car can influence your risk of having road traffic accident. This effect modifier have nothing to do with driving under the influence. So now your conceptual framework is ready with independent variable, dependent variable, control variables, and effect modifier. Let's have another example. Somebody wants to do a study on whether longer duration of surgery is associated with a higher postoperative wound infection rate. Let's make a conceptual framework on this particular topic. Pause the video and make one, and let's get together. So independent variable is duration of surgery. Dependent variable is higher risk of wound infection. Control variable would be this immunocompromised status of the patient, comorbidities, etc. Both could have influence on both dependent and independent variable. And this could be the potential effect modifier. Age of the patient can have effect on risk of infection, and closure tactics by the surgeon can also have an effect on the dependent variable, but not the independent variable. To summarize today's presentation, conceptual framework is an important concept in research. In conceptual framework, you depict the interplay of different variables and their possible relationship in a visual form. An understanding of the literature is a must before you construct the conceptual framework. Thank you for being with me. I hope the information presented here is of help to you. I hope to see you in next video. Bye.